message. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. It spun in. There were no survivors.
You think you know MASH? The show that made us laugh through the pain of war. But behind the jokes and that haunting theme song lies a story even Hollywood couldn't script. For 11 seasons, this band of doctors and misfits turned a Korean War hospital into TV history, mixing chaos, comedy, and compassion like never before. From near cancellation to rebellious rewrites, these behind-the-scenes secrets prove MASH wasn't just a sitcom. It was a revolution. Number 1. The pilot that almost failed. When MASH first aired in 1972, almost no one expected it to last. Not even the network. The show's mix of dark humor, wartime tension, and social commentary felt risky for primetime television. And its first season ratings were so low that CBS considered canceling it altogether. But what saved MASH wasn't instant popularity. It was timing and truth. America was weary of real headlines about Vietnam, and a series that dared to find laughter in the middle of chaos struck a nerve. Viewers began to see themselves in the absurdity. Doctors joking to stay sane, while helicopters roared overhead. By the second season, word of mouth spread, CBS shifted its time slot, and suddenly this risky anti-war sitcom turned into one of television's top 10 shows. The same raw honesty that once made executives nervous became the reason millions of people tuned in every week. So yeah, MASH didn't just survive its rough start. It proved that the stories networks fear most are often the ones audiences need the most. Number 2, a show born from real trauma. MASH wasn't just inspired by a movie, it was inspired by memories. Creator Larry Gelbart and producer Gene Reynolds spent months interviewing doctors and nurses who had served in real Korean War MASH units. The stories they heard about exhaustion, black humor, and moments of quiet humanity between chaos became the emotional blueprint of the series. Gelbart once said the hardest part of writing MASH wasn't being funny. It was how not to trivialize human suffering. The goal was never to make war humorous. It was to show how people used humor to survive it. The Korean War setting gave the show its stage. But the real subject was people, scared, overworked, and clinging to laughter as medicine. That's why Mess Stage felt different from any other comedy on TV. It wasn't slapstick or escapism. It was empathy disguised as wit. And that's the real secret behind MASH's magic. It didn't laugh at pain. It turned pain into something deeply human. Number 3. Alan Alda's unexpected power move. Alan Alda wasn't just the face of MASH. He quietly became its conscience. At first, he was only meant to play Hawkeye Pierce, the wisecracking surgeon with a hidden heart. But as the series evolved, Alda did more than deliver lines. He began shaping what MASH stood for. By the middle of the show's run, Alda started writing and directing episodes himself. In total, he wrote 19 and directed more than 30, including the legendary finale. Goodbye, farewell, and amen. His scripts pushed the series beyond punchlines, tackling moral dilemmas, trauma, and the emotional cost of war. Alda believed comedy could do more than entertain. It could heal. His influence transformed MASH from a military sitcom into one of television's most human and emotionally intelligent series. So, no, Alan Alda wasn't just acting. He was leading, proving that laughter, when used right, can tell the truth about pain. Number 4, the episode that shocked everyone. In 1975, MASH aired an episode that left America speechless. It was called Abyssinia, Henry, and it ended with one of the most shocking TV moments of the decade. Until then, MASH had walked a careful line. War was chaotic, but its main characters always made it home. Then came the twist. Colonel Henry Blake got his discharge orders and was finally going home. The camp threw him a farewell party, the music swelled, and for once, it felt like peace. Then came the gut punch. In the final moments, Radar walked into the operating room, trembling, and said the words no one saw coming. I have a message. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. There were no survivors, no music, no laugh track, just silence. The shock was real. Even CBS executives weren't told about the ending until the episode aired. Viewers flooded the network with letters, some angry, most heartbroken. But that moment changed television forever. It was the first time a sitcom killed off a beloved main character. and the first time MASH made America cry. Number 5, behind the laugh track controversy. If you've ever watched MASH reruns, you might have noticed something unusual. Some episodes have a laugh track, and some don't. This inconsistency came from a creative conflict between the show's creators and CBS executives. From the outset, Larry Gelbart and Alan Alda opposed canned laughter. They felt it was inappropriate. Who laughs in a war zone? CBS, however, insisted, believing audiences needed those cues to know when something was funny. The compromise was peculiar. In the US, episodes aired with a laugh track, while in the UK, they aired without. Alda later joked that hearing fake laughter over scenes set in an operating room made his skin crawl. And he wasn't wrong. Imagine someone chuckling while a character fights to save a wounded soldier. Not exactly sitcom material. Eventually, the creative team won small victories. They convinced the network to drop the laugh track during serious moments, surgeries, deaths, and moral debates. It was a quiet rebellion, but it changed television forever. MASH proved you didn't need forced laughter to feel something. Just honesty, exceptional writing, and a heartbeat. Number 6, when reality hit the set. Even though MASH was filmed on a Hollywood lot, specifically the Fox Ranch in Malibu, the emotions behind it were anything but make-believe. The cast often said the set felt eerily real. The heat, the dust, the helicopters thundering overhead. Sometimes, the acting hit closer to home than anyone expected. Filming wasn't easy. The cast endured blazing sun, freezing nights, and the smell of real smoke from pyrotechnics. Loretta Swit, who played Major Hot Lips Houlihan, said that after long days of shooting, the exhaustion on screen reflected exactly what they felt in real life. Alan Alda recalled pretending to sweat under the blazing Korean sun while temperatures dipped below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. One moment stood out most. During the making of an episode, real military helicopters flew over the Malibu set on their way to a genuine emergency. For a few seconds, the cast froze. Reality and fiction blurred. Alda later said it was one of those moments that reminded us what the show was really about. People trying to stay human in the middle of insanity. MASH didn't just recreate war, it reflected it with all its absurdity, exhaustion, and heart. Number 7, the goodbye that changed TV forever. On February 28, 1983, over 105 million people sat down to say goodbye to MASH. It was more than just a finale, it was a national event. Streets were empty, restaurants closed early, and water systems even recorded massive spikes during commercial breaks because everyone waited until then to use the bathroom. That's how big it was. The episode, titled Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, ran for 2.5 hours, longer than most movies, and wrapped up 11 years of laughter, loss, and heart. But the tone wasn't all jokes and nostalgia. It was raw, honest, emotional. Alan Alda directed and co-wrote the finale himself, determined to give the show a human ending. Characters broke down, soldiers went home, and Hawkeye, the eternal wisecracker, finally let himself feel everything he'd been avoiding. When the credits rolled, millions of viewers cried like they were losing a friend. To this day, it remains the most watched scripted TV episode in American history. MASH didn't just end a show. It ended an era with one final salute. Number 8. The real-life bond between castmates. What made MASH feel so authentic wasn't just the writing, it was the chemistry. The cast wasn't acting like a family. They became one. On screen, they joked and argued like old friends. Off-screen, it wasn't much different. Alan Alda, Loretta Swit, Mike Farrell, and Jamie Farr built lifelong friendships during filming. They shared birthdays, vacations, and even grief. When actor McLean Stevenson, who played Colonel Blake, left the show, the cast's tears in his farewell scene were real. They weren't saying goodbye to a character. They were saying goodbye to a friend. The bond went beyond the final episode, too. Decades after MASH ended, the cast still reunited for interviews, tributes, and personal calls. In 2022, when Alda and Swit appeared together for the show's 50th anniversary, their laughter and affection were exactly the same, 5 decades later. That's rare in Hollywood, where shows come and go like seasons. But MASH was different. It created something TV rarely does, genuine friendship born from fiction. Number 9. The hidden political message. Officially, MASH was about the Korean War, but everyone knew it was really about Vietnam. The show premiered in 1972, when the US was still deeply divided, and creators had to tread carefully. History became camouflage for a message the network couldn't openly broadcast. Behind the jokes and banter, every episode carried a quiet political charge. The surgeries, the moral conflicts, the senseless deaths, they weren't just plot points. They were commentary. Alan Alda later admitted, "We were talking about Vietnam every week. We just didn't have to say the word." The show's anti-war stance wasn't shouted. It was felt. It lived in the exhausted expressions of doctors, patching up soldiers, in Hawkeye's sarcastic rants, in the moments of silence after the laughter faded. That subtlety made it powerful, and sometimes dangerous. CBS tried to keep the politics under control, but MASH kept pushing boundaries anyway. That quiet rebellion paid off. It opened doors for shows that weren't afraid to explore social issues and reflect real-life struggles. MASH proved that television could be more than entertainment. It could be a mirror to society. Number 10. How MASH's legacy lives on today. Decades after the last episode aired, MASH hasn't faded. It's evolved. Reruns still draw millions of viewers, and younger generations are discovering it on streaming platforms like Hulu. Surprised that a 1970s show feels more relevant than ever. Its DNA runs through almost every modern dramedy. Scrubs, The Office, Ted Lasso, all owe something to MASH. The idea that humor and heartbreak can coexist, that characters can be flawed, human and hilarious at the same time. MASH did it first. Even its message still hits hard. In a world where news headlines echo the same chaos and compassion that MASH portrayed, the show reminds us how laughter can be an act of survival. It taught audiences that caring too much isn't weakness, it's strength. And maybe that's why MASH endures. It wasn't about a specific war, or even a time period. It was about people. Messy, tired, funny, resilient people. Just trying to hold on to their humanity. 50 years later, MASH still has one last diagnosis for us. Laughter really is the best medicine. MASH wasn't just a show, it was a mirror. It showed the absurdity of war, the power of humor, and the strength of the human spirit. Decades later, its laughter and lessons still echo. Which fact surprised you most? Drop it in the comments. And remember, as the 4077th taught us, laughter doesn't just heal, it keeps us human.